Good day everyone, my name is Gentiano Istose, and for today's video, I'm going to discuss the self from psychological perspective of Carl Jung. I will tackle Jung's life, his work with Freud, his Jungian psychology, psychology and religion, and his influence. Without further ado, let's start! First, let's talk about Jung's life. Carl Gustav Jung was born on July 26, 1875 in the Swiss canton of Thurgau on Kiswell, which is located in Switzerland, and died on June 6, 1961. He was a Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology. He was one of the first and most widely read writers of the 20th century on the psychology of the human mind. His influence has proved as enduring and diverse as that of Sigmund Freud, with whom he worked for a time, although their approaches to psychotherapy are radically different. Jung was a very solitary child. He was convinced from childhood that he had two personalities, a modern Swiss citizen and a personality more at home in the 18th century. He was close to both of his parents, and his interest in spirituality began at home. And speaking to his parents, Jung is a son of a vicar. His father's name is Paul Jung and her mother's name is Emily Jung. Jung wanted to study archaeology at the university, but his family was too poor. That's why he studied medicine at the University of Basel from 1894 to 1900s. After that, he later worked at the Bourgogne, a psychiatric hospital in Zurich. In 1903, Jung married Emma Rustenbach, who was trained in psychoanalysis but died in 1995. So together, they had 5 children, and they were close collaborators until Emma's death. Jung's occupation was psychiatrist and a writer. In 1906, he sent a copy of his work on word association to Sigmund Freud. As a boy, Jung had a remarkably striking dreams and powerful fantasies that had developed with unusual intensity. After his break with Freud, he deliberately allowed this aspect of himself to arise again and gave the irrational side of his nature-free expression. Now, let's move on to his work with Sigmund Freud. Jung was 30 when he sent a copy of his work Studies in Word Association to Sigmund Freud in Vienna. Half a year later, the then 50-year-old Freud reciprocated by sending a collection of his latest published essays to Jung in Zurich. This marked the beginning of an intense correspondence and collaboration lasting more than 6 years. Jung and Freud ruled two different empires of the mind, and it is the differences that proponents of each like to stress, downplaying the influence these men had on each other in the formative years of their lives. But in 1906, psychoanalysis as an institution was non-existent. Jung became familiar with Freud's research at the Bourgogne, corroborated many of Freud's ideas, and for a time period between 1907 and 1912, he and Freud worked closely together. In 1908, Jung became editor of the newly founded Yearbook of Psychoanalytical and Psychopathological Research. The following year, Jung traveled with Freud and Sandor Ferenczi to the USA to spread the news of psychoanalysis, and in 1910, Jung became chairman for life of the International Psychoanalytical Association. Jung eventually came to believe that Freud's view of the human unconscious mind placed too great an emphasis on sexuality in relation of human behavior and to psychological complexes. In 1914, Jung resigned from the Psychoanalytic Society. The separation of two great figures in psychology impacted not only their own research and theoretical development, but also affected the development of psychology, leading to divergent schools regarding the conception of the human mind that remain separate of this day. Now, let's talk about Jungian psychology. After his break with Freud, Jung and his followers began the school of analytical psychology. Although Jung was wary of founding a school of psychology, he did develop a distinctive approach to the study of the human psyche. The overarching goal of Jung's life work was a reconciliation of the life of the individual with the world of the suprapersonal archetypes. He came to see the individual's encounter with the unconscious as essential to this process. Later in life, Jung spoke of the transcendent function of the psyche, by which the conscious and unconscious are united. He believed this would lead to the full realization of the potential of the individual self. Now, analytical psychology primarily explores how the collective unconscious, the part of consciousness that is cross-cultural and common to all human beings, influences personality. It is utilized not only for those with a mental disorder, but also for those who desires to promote their own psychological development and well-being. Although Jung learned many concepts and tools from Freud's method of psychoanalysis, such as the unconscious, dream analysis, and free association, many more pioneering psychological concepts were originally proposed by Jung. So first is the archetype. So Jung discovered that certain symbolic themes existed across all cultures, all epochs, and in every individual. Together, these symbolic themes comprise the archetypes of the collective unconscious. So next is the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious refers for that part of a person's unconscious that is common to all human beings. Jung took on the task of exploring and attempting to discern the mysteries stored in the collective unconscious. Next is the complex. A complex is an emotionally charged group of ideas or images. Complexes are the architects of dreams and of symptoms, the building blocks of the psyche, and the source of all human emotions. Then the individuation. Jung used the process of individuation in pioneering the psychotherapy of the middle-aged and elderly, especially those who felt their lives had lost meaning. Many of these patients had lost their religious beliefs. Jung found that if they could rediscover their own meaning as expressed in dream and imagination, as well as through the exploration of mythology and religion, they would become more complete personalities. Next, the synchronicity. Jung defined the concept of synchronicity as two simultaneous events that occur coincidentally that are not causally related but result in meaningful connection. Synchronicity is also defined as a meaningful coincidence of an inner image with an outer event, which can often let one of the world in a new light, especially if one responds very deeply with the full involvement of his or her being to the meaning of the event. And lastly, psychological types. Jung identified two core psychological processes that he termed extrovert, as originally spelled by Jung and considered a variant of the word extrovert in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and introvert. In psychology and religion, Jung believed that the force of rationalism had eroded man's spiritual values to a dangerous degree, leading to worldwide disorientation and dissociation. He said that we have become dominated by the goddess reason, who is our greatest and most tragic illusion. He discovered that the psyche spontaneously produces images with a religious content and is by nature religious. As our life becomes more rational, the symbols in our dreams keep us connected with the symbols of the mysteries of life. The symbols and archetypes are not static or mechanical, but come alive as an individual assigns meaning to them. He explained that the symbol-producing function of dreams is to bring the original mind into an advanced consciousness. Now, let's move to the last topic, Jung's influence. Jung has an enduring influence both in psychology and beyond. Many writers, artists, musicians, filmmakers, theologians, and mythologists have found inspiration in Jung's work. He is also an Alcoholics Anonymous. Jung once treated an American patient suffering from chronic alcoholism. After working with the patient for some time and achieving no significant progress, Jung told the man that his alcoholic condition was near to hopeless, save only the possibility of his spiritual experience. The patient took Jung's advice seriously and set about seeking a personal spiritual experience. Furthermore, Jung's theory of psychological types was influenced by the popular Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or MBTI, Kersey-Bates Temperament Sorter or KBTS, and Socialniks. In the field of family systems theory, the concept of psychological type holds potential as another way to understand the internal conflicts and alliances within the family, and thus to support family counseling. Additionally, archetypal psychology was founded by James Hillman, who trained at the Jung Institute in Zurich. Hillman acknowledges that archetypal psychology originated with Jung, although it developed in a somewhat different direction. Also, the depth psychology, it is the most strongly influenced by the work of Carl Jung, especially his emphasis on questions of psyche, human development, and personality development, or individuation. It is a broad term that refers to any psychological approach examining the depth, the hidden or deeper parts of human experience. And lastly, popular culture. Jung's ideas, especially the archetypes, have strongly influenced popular culture and media, such as novels, films, video games, and television programming. In conclusion, Carl Jung's idea of the self is important because it helps us understand who we truly are and how we can feel whole. He saw the self as more than just our conscious mind. It's the deeper part of us that connects all the pieces, like our strengths, fears, and hidden potential. Jung believed life is about becoming our full, authentic selves by bringing together these parts, a process he called individuation. This idea is comforting in a world where we often feel fragmented or disconnected, reminding us that balance and harmony come from within. Jung's work gives us tools to explore our inner world, find meaning, and live with greater purpose and authenticity. So, that ends my discussion about Carl Jung's understanding of the self from psychological perspective. I hope you learned something from his ideas. Goodbye, and thank you for listening.